Harp on Sports with Seth Harp.
You know what time it is.
3, 2, 1. Let's do this.
Go, bartender! Your food needs refill!
Harp on Sports, the Bar, podcast media, audio, and radio network. What do we have in store for you on this edition of The Bar? College football playoff predictions, opening round. Of course, Indiana and Notre Dame kicking things off Friday night, leading to the triple header on Saturday. Going to look through what this slate is. And also, Saturday has the potential to be the greatest sporting event day of the year. So we're going to look at that as well. Also, portal problems. There can be things that are bad for college football, but not ruining college football. Hyperbole, overstatements. The portal's ruining college football. This time of year, it's terrible. Okay, when players leave after the regular season to go somewhere else, it's terrible. But when coaches leave after the regular season to take new jobs, it's just business. Don't be hypocrites. But there is a solution to this, so we're going to look at that as well. Also, Wake Forest has a new football coach. They went and hired Jake Dickert from Washington State. Okay, but teams like Wake need to bake. I'll explain what that is coming up. Again, Harp on Sports, the Bar, podcast media, audio, radio network. Follow, share, like, subscribe at Harp on Sports Twitter, at Harp on Sports Instagram, Harp on Sports, the auditory route, Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Harp on Sports, the YouTube page under the Bar, Harp on Sports Facebook page, and of course, harponsports.com. All right, college football playoff, here we go. And look, after, talk of expansion and, where we were in the 80s and early 90s, of, who knows what was going to happen, right? You could be the 5th ranked team in America and win the national championship to now where 12 teams make it. I know there's some debate there on the back end, Alabama or South Carolina or Ole Miss or even, SMU, however it shook out. Look, I look at it like this, that this is what you wanted, you got it, and be careful what you wish for, because now we're going to have other concerns and other problems that you didn't even foresee. Like, are you going to punish teams for losing in their conference championship game? Are people going to hedge their bets with tickets for the quarterfinals, semifinals, and the championship game? It's a lot to ask. It is, for people to travel to 3 different locations to follow their team. If Georgia would go to the national championship, you'd have to go what? You'd have to go Sugar Bowl. Is it Orange? And then Atlanta, I guess. Oregon would be what? Rose? Then what? Dallas? Then think about where you're going to have to go when all this is said and done. So neither here nor there. Other concerns, but not for this. The games and the matchups. What's interesting about this is I went through and looked at all of these things. None of the spreads are less than 7. They're not. None of these spreads are less than 7 points, which is so interesting because conference championship weekend, none of the spreads were more than 3.5. We had 4 major conference championship games, and then you had the Mountain West championship game. The highest spread was like 3.5, wasn't it? The highest spread was 3.5. Oregon was a 3.5 point favorite over Penn State. Pretty interesting when you think about it. And now here we have the college football playoff, and none of these spreads are less than 7.5. So I was looking at this and what we have and what we've seen, and I'm going to tell you what I think. There's 2 teams I like to give the points. There's 2 teams I'm going to take the points. Starting off first, Indiana, Notre Dame, Friday night. Look, the job that Hoosiers and Indiana football have done this year, it's remarkable what they've done. It is. But, these are 2 teams that don't really have marquee wins. Notre Dame's biggest win, they crushed Army and they crushed Navy. They beat SC out at SC, but that was a 500 football team when it was all said and done. Indiana's best win is what, Washington? Michigan? They beat Washington, they beat Michigan, but those were tight games. So now you're going to go on the road into South Bend. Weather, look, I don't know how much of a factor it is. I know Bloomington's, 4.5 hours south of South Bend. But when it comes to this, when in doubt, take the team with a better quarterback at home, right? And Notre Dame's proven they can pile up a ton of points. They score a ton of points. Now, the weather's supposed to be in the 20s Friday night. I look at this and I say to myself, Notre Dame does have some kicking issues, some kicking woes. But just like when Ohio State played Indiana and accumulating points. Indiana will have not played a quality opponent since Ohio State. You're talking at this point 6 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks since they played a quality opponent. I think it's going to be too much. Notre Dame wins. They're at home. Marcus Freeman's got the contract extension. This team's cooking. And give me the Irish 27-17. I'll give the Hoosiers 7 points. I think it's going to be a good football game, though. Everybody think this is going to be a blowout. Notre Dame's going to beat them by 3 or 4 touchdowns. It's crazy. This thing's going to be like 7-0 Notre Dame, 7-3 Notre Dame, 14-3 Notre Dame, 14-10 Notre Dame. It's going to be that type of game throughout. And then I think Notre Dame scores like to put it on ice. But give me the Irish 27-17. Going to kick off the next day, SMU Penn State. Look, the Nittany Lions, to me, were very impressive in their loss to Oregon. We're impressive. I know it was an Indy. Oregon can move, baby. Oregon can move. And I know James Franklin's had a terrible record against top 10, top 5 opponents, but this is not a top 5 opponent. SMU, valiant in their effort, in their comeback against Clemson, but Penn State's a different beast. Penn State's a different beast defensively, offensively. And again, SMU traveling up to Happy Valley. It's an early game, so I think that benefits SMU a little bit. If this were an 8 o'clock kick in Pennsylvania, it's going to be 19 degrees. You're talking a different beast here. Plus, the game in Charlotte was chilly. It was cold. It wasn't frigid, but it was cold. But when this is all said and done, again, I go with the better team and the better quarterback. And SMU, look, with the job that Rhett Lashley's done there and what they did against Clemson, great comeback. You dig a hole like that against Penn State, you're going to get boat raced. This is one that I think is going to be closer than people think. I do. I think, SMU's ability to run the ball and their ability to score, and they've got playmakers, is going to keep it close. But Penn State's just going to rattle off a bunch of points here. Give me SMU in the 7.5, 8. Give me them in the points. But I think Penn State wins like 28-21. But this is going to be a little bit different than the Indiana game. I think this is one of those games that's 14-0 Penn State, 14-7 Penn State, 21-7 Penn State, 21-14 Penn State, 28-14 Penn State. That type of game where I think you have a backdoor cover situation on your hands there. So what does that mean? That means you're going to get a Penn State, Boise State matchup in round 2, and you're going to get a Notre Dame, Georgia matchup in the Sugar Bowl in round 2. Saturday afternoon into Saturday evening, Texas and Clemson. This is the one game that I really don't. I look at the matchups and how good Texas's defense is, and I know Clemson had the big win over SMU late, but this is also a Clemson team that got really, really South Carolina. Boy, and Dabo, that he rides again. This is one of those teams that, for a football term, outkick their coverage late in the year, and I don't know how Clemson's going to score a lot of points against Texas. I don't. I know Texas struggled to score points against Georgia. But you give Sarkisian a couple weeks to get ready here, and the talent that he has in the offense and the numbers that he can put up. And I think you'll see Arch Manning with a couple more wrinkles here. And Clemson had played on big stages. Texas played on big stages too. SMU really hadn't. So give me Texas. I think Texas is going to cover the 12.5 here. Give me Texas 28-14 over Clemson. That sets up what? A Texas-Arizona State matchup. And the last one, Ohio State and Tennessee. The Buckeyes, 7.5 point favorites here. Again, I'm going to give Clemson the 12.5 on that go around with Texas. But this one is, I think, going to be the best game of the day. It's night in Columbus, so it's going to be a little bit different. Look, Knoxville's not exactly Mobile. It's not exactly the Bayou. It snows. It's in the right around the Smoky Mountains, right? Nashville, it's cold. It can get cold quite a bit. So this is not something that, oh my God, how are they going to handle this? This is not like Ole Miss playing in Minnesota. This is not going to be like, it would have been like if you would have had, Florida or Florida State playing in Happy Valley or in Ann Arbor. It's going to be a little bit different. So I think this is a little bit more tight wound. Tennessee's got tons of weapons. Tennessee can score. Josh Heupel, the offense. Ohio State's got a gigantic chip on their shoulder. Gigantic chip. They can play the worlds against us. Everybody's out to get our coach. We saw what happened when that type of mindset sunk in at Florida at the end of the year, defending Billy Napier, playing for Billy Napier against Lane Kiffin. I think Ohio State wins. I think this is close, though. I'm going to take Tennessee in the points, but I think Ohio State scores late to beat them. Give me Ohio State 24-21. And I'm going all home teams, but not all home teams to cover. 2 will cover, 2 won't. And there's no history here, so I can't say history tells us at least one road team wins. This isn't the NFL divisional round or the wild card round where history tells us at least 2 teams win this opening weekend on the road. That's not going to happen here. It's not. Be interesting to see how much over time home field really manages to matter in the first round, especially with South teams going north, Southern teams going north. So again, Indiana, Georgia, round 2. Indiana covers. They beat Indiana by 10. Penn State doesn't cover, but they take care of SMU, and we have ourselves a Penn State-Boise State matchup in the second round. Texas covers against Clemson, beats them by a couple of scores. I like Texas then. Well, you're going to have Texas and Arizona State in the second round, and then Ohio State beats Tennessee, and then you have a Ohio State-Oregon matchup. So, yeah, there we go. So that's what I think you're going to get college football playoff. And I think it sets up to be one of the more interesting Friday nights into Saturdays of the year. I do. Think about what you have. You have the college football playoff starting with Notre Dame and Indiana. Then you got the trifecta on Saturday. You also have NFL games where you get the Chiefs taking on the Texans. You got 2 NFL playoff matchups, potential postseason matchups staring you in the face on Saturday. You get boom, 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 boom. It has the propensity to be the best day of the year in college football and in the NFL, like in the best day of the year. Bold games. Yeah, but you're going to have 3 playoff games and 2 massive NFL games. Saturday's going to be great. So there you go. Yeah, I think it's going to live up to the hype. Yes. Speaking of hype, this is one thing that we see unforeseen circumstances. Nobody saw transfer portal. This is something that wasn't heard of 5 years ago. Now it's part of the lexicon. And look, hypocriticism aside, I do think it's interesting that, the portal's a problem. Look at all the players leaving when coaches leave all the time. Brian Kelly spurned Cincinnati before the Sugar Bowl, right? Tim Tebow and the Gators crushed them. We see this all the time. Coaches leave all the time to take other jobs. Don't coach their team in the bowl game. They bail. It happens. It happens all the time. Coaches leave. Bye. Coaches leave all the time following conference championship games or the end of the regular season and the bowl game. And we just kind of, it's just the way it is. Oh, well, it's business. That's business. The players do it. Well, we're ruining the sport. I know you've got 1 as opposed to hundreds or, a few dozen, but a coach leaves, it cripples the program. An assistant steps in. It's just a nightmare. Teams fire guys all the time. You have no problem firing your coach. Well, they got to let it play out. So, look, all that hyper, ridiculous, over the top, okay? Hypocrite nature of this allows you to fix it. And I sit back and I look at this. I'm like, okay, this is the transfer portal is December 9th through December 28th. This is simple. You want to stop this? We've talked about this forever. The players signed 2-year contracts. We've talked about in America like a living wage, $1,000 a month per person. Was it Andrew Yang that ran for president a couple years ago, kicked this around, a living wage? Well, then you have a college football wage. Okay. And you sign a contract, just like we all do for the most part where we work. Okay, you will be paid. It's $10,000 a month. Oh, that's too much. Okay, fine. You're paid $5,000 a month. You sign a 2-year deal. You have to stay with this team. And then when the season's over, you're gone. Because you make people sign contracts, or there's ways to get out of contracts. You signed a contract. No, look, if you sign a contract in the NFL and you play with that team at the end of the year, you can leave and go elsewhere. Free agency happens. That's what this is. 2-year contracts. Can't leave. You end this immediately. You end it immediately. And then your open portal window is, you could do it in January. Well, the semester doesn't start and people need to find their new schools. Oh, you don't give a damn about their education. Stop it. 2-year contracts. You finish things out. Players have done this. Hey, it's my intention to finish the season and then hit free agency. Players can say the same thing. It's my intention to finish my time here at Texas, and then I will hit the open market. But I'm playing through the year. That's how the deal works. Oh, by the way, well, Seth, you can't stop them. What if they decide to sit out? Well, NFL players decide to sit out. Well, anybody wants you? This is fine. If you choose, you can even put like caveats on this. You can bail if you want, but you have to sit out an entire year. You quit in the middle of the year, you have to sit out an entire year. You could really make this. If you don't sign your contract, then you're on the bench for a year like the old transfer rules. You can't play for a year. You could make this really interesting. But if you just give them a living wage, AKA living contract, 2-year deals, it solves it. It solves it. And then when does the portal window open? Very simple. It opens after the year. And then you're dead. And look, and you can have something if you really want to do something after spring ball. You could have a portal window open in January after the bowl games are over and the playoff. And then you could have a portal window open from May 1st to May 31st after spring ball. And then you're good to go. 2-year contracts. Done. And we talk about this because Marshall had to opt out of their game with, is it Army? Marshall had to opt out of their game with Army, the Independence Bowl, because Charles Huff said deuces to Marshall and went to Southern Miss. So they had to opt out of their bowl game. Because the player's like, we're leaving. And then there's a mass exodus. The coach left, causing this. You have everybody else, it's their feelings. All these, Ole Miss, it's feelings. Lane Kiffin, oh my God, these players are leaving me. SMU actually had a coach, an actual coach leave Marshall that led to the team collapsing, everybody bailing, them not being able to go to a bowl game. Not a peep. There's a bunch of damn hypocrites. But we know that. Okay, then let's solve it. Pointing at it saying, the portal's ruining the game. It's not ruining the game. College football playoff's going to be fine. Notre Dame hasn't had anybody transferred. Now, you have guys at Arizona State that have said they're going to enter the portal, but coach says you're going to stay on the team, though, because he knows that gives them the best chance. That's also one of those situations where feelings are not going to get away in the fundamentals of this. I need these guys around for practice. And who's to say that they don't come? Somebody gets hurt, somebody contributes and decides to stay. I'm going to punish you. No. But 2-year contracts solve all this. The draft too. Well, what if they want to enter the NFL draft? 2-year contracts. And how you can also do this if you really wanted to make it fun and you wanted people to stay, even if it was like Sam Hartman at Notre Dame last year, didn't play in the Sun Bowl for Notre Dame. He entered the draft, didn't get drafted. There's ways to do this if you want to have a little fun with it too. You could say to your players, okay, this is what we're going to do. You play through the bowl game. If you play in the bowl game, you can enter the draft. And if you don't get drafted in the first 5 rounds, you can come back to college. Incentivize people to come back to college. Hey, you can play in the bowl game, but if you don't like where you go in the first 5 rounds, you can come back. Or if you go in the first 4 rounds, you're gone. But if you get drafted after that, there's how you keep guys around. Well, if you got marquee guys who are going to go in the first round, they're going to bail anyway. There's only so much you can do at the end of the day. Revoke their scholarships like they care. Like they give a damn. There's certain things you're just not going to be able to prevent. That's one of them. If I am going to be a top 5 pick, top 10 pick on the offensive line and my team's playing in 6-6 bowl game here, I'm looking and go, I don't buy. I know I'm going to be this buy. There's just certain instances you're going to we're going to lose this dude. It's life. Can't solve all the problems. You can solve most of them, though. Like, money can't solve all your problems. Yeah, but it can solve a good chunk of them. Not going to live forever, but it can solve a good chunk of them. So that's how I look at that. Portal problems, fixed with contracts. Wanted to wrap with this. Wake Forest just hired a new football coach, and so did Norfolk State with Michael Vick. I call this the wake and bake. And you can be critical of Norfolk State, what Michael Vick did 15 years ago. That's fair. Go get him. Lose your mind. Michael Vick is trying to go the Deion route, right? What Deion did to work his way up in Jackson and then up to Colorado. Michael Vick has success at Norfolk State. They're good. Maybe a path to Virginia Tech. Who knows what it ends up being for Michael Vick. Wake Forest hired Washington State's head coach, Jake Dickert, who was like 24 and 21 in 4 years. And Dave Clawson just left. Dave Clawson's a prime example of Wake Forest a couple years ago. He went 8-4, and Lee Corso used to call these like cemetery programs. You don't hang around very long, you get in and you get out. And that's what Dave should have done. It's admirable that you want to build this stuff, but if you want long-term longevity in the sport, you got to find yourself in a situation that's financially respectable. I'm admirable. If somebody wants to stay for the Pittsburgh Pirates and play for them for 20 years, Paul Skeens wants to do that, that's fine. But I know that organization's track record, and I've seen what they've done. Paul Skeens, probably when he's about 28, 29, is going to look around and go, you know what? I actually would give a damn about winning, making some money. Not going to happen here. I'd like to win a championship. That's what we want people to do, right? Win titles. So when I look at this with Wake Forest, schools like Wake Forest, we saw it with Colorado and Dion. You know, you look at Power 5 programs or Power 4 programs now, there's certain programs that are going to have to take flyers on some dudes. And I like what, you know, Jake, it looks like he's a good coach. He's a decent coach. He's barely above 500 at Washington State. But look what Colorado did. Colorado's like, we want Dion. Remember how bad things fell apart last year? They finished 4-8. I'm like, oh my God, what were they thinking? 9-3 season, got the Heisman Trophy winner. Sports are more of the Thanksgiving dinner where it needs to bake for a while than a frozen pizza. Let it bake. And that's exactly what Colorado did. And Wake Forest should have done the same thing. If I were Wake, I'd have looked around and go, okay, who do we have around here? Who's a guy that deserves a shot, that wants to get into coaching, that just retired? If I were Wake Forest, if they can be a coach, are they a coach or not? Okay, well, you know, Dion went and proved his ranks here. If Michael Vick, and I know Michael Vick's got the track record in the past, I get that, but I'd be begging guys that have retired in the last few years if they want to get into coaching. I'd be begging Drew Brees. Imagine if Wake Forest hired Drew Brees. I'd be begging guys like that. Phillip Rivers. Guys that have hung it up in the last few years. Travis Kelce's going to make more, or Jason Kelce's going to make more money, but could Jason Kelce be a coach? Well, you what? You're Wake, and you're Colorado. You're not going. Nothing that you've tried's really worked the last 15 years. Nothing. Those programs should be handing over the reins to unproven star former players. Well, if it doesn't work, he's 4-8 back-to-back years. So what if it doesn't work? If it works, Dion like Colorado, is he going to stay there forever? Who knows? Who knows? But schools like Wake and what North Carolina just did, I get, with Bill, I get it. I get it. But I look around and, you got schools like Utah and Utah State. And I look at a guy like Alex Smith. I don't know what program, as I'm dancing around out there, to find that is struggling. And again, they've done a nice job. Leopold at Kansas has done a nice job. But I look at certain teams in the Big 12, certain teams that have struggled. I know Matt Campbell's got an extension at Iowa State. If I'm a school that is a high academic school that struggles to go 500, not that he would take it, but if Clark Lea leaves Vanderbilt, he's done a nice job when he leaves. Vanderbilt should pick up the phone and call Peyton Manning. So you want it? We'll give it to you. Tennessee, it's too much of a risk. But programs like that, Vandy, Wake, Duke, Manny Diaz has done a nice job. But if I'm Duke, I look around and go, okay, do I have any former players in the NFL who would like this? Again, it's a nice hire. But wake and bake. Go the Dion route. A couple years, if Mike Vick's a good coach and can turn Norfolk State into a 9-3 program, somebody's going to come calling. Somebody's going to come calling. Schools like Florida State, no. But if you're a school like USF, Florida International, remember, Lane Kiffin went to FAU. Schools like that, yes. Now, in the major conferences, I look around like Northwestern. Each conference I can pick a couple. Northwestern should do this. Mississippi State should think about doing this. Wake. Yes. I mentioned Northwestern. Yeah. Purdue just hired UNLV's coach, Barry Odom, who coached at Mizzou, right? That's a good hire. That's fine. I'm okay with that. But in certain instances, I look around and go, okay, Washington State, they did this, Mike Leach and what they've done. If I were Washington State, I'd look around and go, okay, who do we have out here? Not that Ryan Leaf's the best example, but programs like that should do. A little wake and bake. Harp on Sports, the Bar, podcast, media, audio, radio network. Follow, share, like, subscribe. At Harp on Sports Twitter, at Harp on Sports Instagram, Harp on Sports, the auditory route under the bar, Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Harp on Sports Facebook page, Harp on Sports YouTube channel, and of course, harponsports.com. All 4 home teams win. Notre Dame covers. Texas covers. Give me SMU in the points. Penn State wins, though. Give me Tennessee in the points. Ohio State wins. Setting up for a fantastic semifinal round of the college football playoff. Remember, stay clean, stay focused, stay strong. Frankenstein. Have fun with your friends.